Hello, my name is Monica Kretschmer, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Universal Women's Network, Woman of Inspiration Awards, and this is the Woman of Inspiration podcast, where we speak with women who lead, inspire, and motivate. And today I have a really special guest. We've been playing telephone tag, we've had some green room conversations, and I'm excited to go on air with Sherry Holmes. Sherry Holmes is a contractor, she's a TV host, keynote speaker, brand ambassador, of course, a social media influence with all of the great content she has to really open up the opportunities to make more women aware of the opportunities in trade and construction. And Sherry, so great to have you today here with me. Your show, Make It Right. You're a co-host on the show, but you're also a contractor. And for those of you that don't know who you are, you have two little girls, 1 and 5. So you are busy on all fronts. So thank you so much
Yes.
for joining us today, and I'm excited for our conversation.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Yes, I am a very busy girl, but I'm sure all of us really are. Kids are keeping me extremely busy. We're filming two different series at the same time right now. So, I don't normally know what day it is or what time it is or what I'm getting myself into. You just kind of got to go with it and hope for the best.
That's great advice. Sometimes I say ignorance is bliss. If we
Yes,
would sign up for the hard work down the road initially, we may not even do it. So just jump in
probably
with both
not.
feet. Sounds like
Yeah.
that's what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm just kind of, you got to go with the flow to an extent. You can't plan out everything perfectly and nothing's going to work every day the way you want it to. So you got to roll with the punches and keep going with it.
Awesome. So I would love to start right from the beginning.
Okay.
Like probably everything's going fast forward with you, since becoming a co-host. And now you're not just doing the work, you're also behind the scenes and in front of the camera. But how did it all begin? Like, what was Sherry as a 12-year-old? Like, were you always handing the hammer off to your dad, who, for those of you that don't know, is a celebrity himself, Mike Holmes? Like everybody in the construction industry knows who your father is, and those that don't know who your father is still know who he is because he's kind of construction and Mike Holmes is hand in hand. So, what was that like growing up in your home?
Um,
How did you get involved?
when we were younger, he wasn't Mike Holmes. Like I know that's obviously what his name is, but the TV show didn't start until I think I was a teenager at some point. I don't ask me the exact age. But when we were younger, I think I was around the age of maybe 5 or something. My parents split. And so we had to spend every other weekend with my dad. And he had to work. He was living in his office for a little bit because, you got to try to make the money to take care of your family, to take care of yourself, going through a divorce and whatever else life throws at you, really. And so every time we'd go and spend our weekends with him, my dad would be on a job site. So there's three of us. One does not work on television. She wants nothing to do with it. But we would all go and visit him and we would show up to his workplace. And, we like to say that we would help him, but honestly, we were just making a mess and causing a ruckus on. Oh, sorry, my husband is calling me. He can wait. Funny story, my husband actually works on the television show with us as well, but I digress. Um, so we'd go and eventually we would kind of learn to help him clean up and do little things, and he would let us use power tools, which okay, back then it was acceptable to an extent. All right, we were safe-ish. Now it would not be something we would do. But like our bonding time together was working with tools and building little things at the house. So we made toolboxes, and then I would want my dad to fill it with tools because obviously I needed my own tools. We built birdhouses. He actually built me my first Barbie dream house. I really, really, really wanted a Barbie dream house, and we couldn't afford it. And so he made me one. It was the ugliest Barbie house you will ever see in your life. But I bet you it is still standing to this day. So it was very structurally sound. Um, Ironically enough, I did not want to get in construction. So it was never an aspiration of mine. It was never something I thought I would do. My interest in construction was purely as a bonding experience with my father, or so I thought. I didn't really have a lot of interaction or exposure outside of my dad in schools. It was mostly all boys who would go and do it. And in order for me to take a tech class, a construction class, I had to take half a semester of home ec. So I had to learn how to run a household, how to cook a meal. Of course, not mortgages and the important stuff, just nonsense. I had to make a baby out of pantyhose and take it through my school and take care of it and make sure my baby was fine. So I had to learn how to be a good old housewife instead of actually learn how to be self-sufficient in order to figure out how to use a power tool on my own, which is pretty crazy for me to think of. And it's just horrible that it wasn't really something that was introduced at a younger age to me. And hitting those obstacles at such a young age is really a deterrent. What makes you want to get into a career when you weren't welcomed in the first place?
Mm.
So interesting.
Interesting. You saying that, I had a flashback of my home ec and shop days when I was growing up. And
Hmm.
right, you're like, whipping up muffins and making aprons and
Yeah.
sewing, like really, I mean, those are still skills that
Yeah.
I have today, of course, but they really separated the boys from the girls and what their roles were when we were growing up. So,
Mhm.
what changed for you? And let me go back for a second here. Um, and I love this story, how it's a bonding moment because, there's lots of men out there that, just, think that they're, not providing some value to the young women in the world. But even with my own father, I picked up a lot of stuff from him, didn't even know what I was picking up. And now
Mhm.
I really can work my way around a Home Depot. I think we talked about that.
Yes, we
And I'm
did.
the first one to try and fix something on my own versus calling somebody for help. Not always the right thing to do, but those influences at a younger age are so very important. So what began as a role model with your father and a bonding time, what made the switch for you to go, hey, there's something that I'm kind of interested in?
It took a really long time, to be honest. He had asked me multiple times as I got older to join the construction crew. He really wanted to push more women in the trades. And he's always been like that, which I think is just so amazing and such a wonderful quality of his. He wants everything. The gender equality is huge to him. He wants to have more women working with him. He wants to support all those rules. And we have had different women, multiple different women, whether they be with the trades or with us, the construction crew, join and work with us, whether it's a period of time or long term, which has been really great. And so he had asked me since I think I graduated high school. So how old are you when you graduate? 16, 17?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah, I have no idea. None of my kids are little, that's the only age I know. So I graduated and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I applied to multiple universities and colleges and for a huge range of careers, nothing that made any sense. And he was like, just come work for my company, take a year, figure it out. So you're putting your money in the right place instead of just throwing it around, not knowing what you want to do.
Mm.
So I ended up taking a year. I worked about 3 different jobs because I wanted to fund my hobby in life, which was traveling. So I used to backpack. And he was like, hey, you should come join our construction crew. I was like, no, not for me. I don't want to do it. And I would help him on the side. Like I refinished his hardwood floor in his living room. We refinished his fireplace. My brother and I helped him build a shed in the backyard. So we were always active in construction, just not something that I was aware of, I suppose. Like, it was just something that you do. You're helping your parents. It's what I have to do. And I was enjoying it, but I guess you don't really realize that. So actually, when I turned 21 is when I finally agreed to join him on a construction site. And it was bribery, if I'm being honest. He said, listen, Sherry, are you going to say no to helping this amazing woman who has taken in all of her grandchildren to raise them and bring them up through this life, who she no longer has a house. It was in after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans in the lower ninth ward. I'm talking way too fast. I'm sorry. Um, so she no longer had possessions. She didn't have photos. She had no place to live, no vehicle. It's like, you're going to say no to helping this woman? I was like, oh, well, no, that would be great to help her. I would love to help her. He's like, have you ever been to New Orleans? I said, no. He's like, well, you like to travel, right? And I was like, yeah. And so he kind of backed me into a corner and I had said no for years. And finally I was like, okay, like I guess I'll do it. And that was 3 days before my 21st birthday. And we flew down to New Orleans in the States and built a house from the ground up. So
Oh,
it was later in life for me, and I said no for a very long time, but it was the most amazing introduction, and I'm happy it worked the way it did.
and what a way to kick off a 21st birthday, legal in the US, and
Yeah,
building
yeah.
a house from scratch, helping another woman succeed. That's huge. And
Hmm.
I can tell you, as a single mom, because I was a single mom since I think I shared that with you, since my son was 7 months old. So
And that's
I
a
can
lot of
tell you
work.
that was so impactful. You made such a big difference in that woman's life that you probably won't even know the ripple effect that
Thank
actually.
you.
Yeah. So
I would love
proud
to
of that.
revisit and see, because it is such a wonderful thing with our job is the people you get to help. You really truly do feel like a superhero somehow, because you're bringing them back. First of all, they've lost all their trust in contractors. Generally, it's something terrible has happened. It's unfortunate. And we get to come in and really change their lives and give them a head start. And it's a pretty phenomenal feeling.
So let me ask you something. Your dad, he spoke your love
Mhm.
language, travel. Pretty smart guy.
Yeah, yeah.
How proud was he? Probably was he like outward facing proud, or was he like, okay, I'm not letting you go now. Like you're in here for the long haul. Like, how did that evolve into, the New Orleans experience to now, being a part of the TV crew and co-host, and still maintaining your contracting behind the scenes as well. Like, how did that sort of evolve?
He was always he's always been my biggest fan, honestly, and he's always been very in an aggressive sense, almost like he wants to push me into a direction because he knows I can always do better and I can always work harder, and there's so many different things that you can aspire to be and do in life, and he's very like, I know you can do it. You're going to be able to do this, Sherry. I used to be very shy. Working on camera in New Orleans was the scariest thing I have ever done in my life. I didn't want to have a camera in my face. I don't like getting my picture taken. I was terrified. And somehow years later, I'm a co-host of a show and my job is to work on camera. Um, so he really did expose me to some of the most amazing things I've ever done in my life and some of my biggest fears. And he has always been my biggest cheerleader, and he's always been super supportive, and he's so proud of me. But yeah, he will not let me go. I'm in it for the long haul. After New Orleans, he's like, no, you're on the crew. That's it. That is it.
So how has that transition been? And I mentioned that you have, two little girls.
Hmm.
And so 1 and 5, they're fairly young. So your career, as you're sort of building your career, and we change of,
Yes.
priorities. So how was that? Because that show and that vein of being a contractor, like that's full steam ahead. Like, did you take time off, or how
Yeah.
did you pivot or work around that or make it work?
That is Having children is wild. It is such a change in your life. Don't get me wrong, it is wonderful and I love my girls. They are the best. And I'm so happy I had two girls. They keep me going every single day. But it is a lifestyle change. It is a career changing moment that happens. When I first found out I was pregnant, I thought I was going to get fired. I worked for my father and I thought he was going to let me go because I was pregnant. How can I be pregnant and work in construction? How can I have a baby and work in construction?
Mm.
And at 8 or 9 months pregnant, I flew to, I think it was in Nashville, and I was speaking at a women's and roofing event. So, women in roofing, it's all women who work in roofing. Probably 500 women, which is amazing, first of all. Um, and I'm standing on stage, and I just finally was like, how many of you have kids? And almost every single woman put their hand up. I was like, oh, so you all have successful careers. You're all still working in this industry and you have raised children. So what am I complaining about? What am I worried about? It took me, I didn't tell my dad I was pregnant until I had to, until I started showing because I was so petrified. And then once I had my daughter, Callie, she she's so cute, man. She's so cute. But she came to work with me when I was 2 months postpartum. I couldn't stay away from the job site. I wasn't 100% a co-host at that time. I was more focused on the construction crew. I did do some hosting, not tons. And she would just come to work with me and we'd have to kind of adapt. I think we were filming a show with CTV, which was just insanity. And I would have to run back and forth because I was breastfeeding. And so we had like this little trailer on site so that she could be there and be safe and comfortable. And I'd have to run back and forth. So I'm filming, I'm working, my kid's hungry, my kid needs a nap, she's screaming for whatever reason. So it was pretty complicated and very stressful, but I love the fact that I have 2 daughters and I can expose them to a career choice they probably would have never been drawn to on their own. If you're not introduced to it, if you're not educated about it, how do you know that it's going to be an option for you? So they've come to site with me. They see what I do. I took them to a play place on the weekend and they were building bricks in the construction area of this place. So they still love that stuff, even if they don't know that they do.
Mm. That's, I love your authenticity about sharing, going, I wasn't even tell my dad, and he's my
Yeah.
boss, and he's the pro women,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's just ingrained that our that we won't be accepted.
Yeah.
And, the more conversations like we're having, like we are now, just empowers other people to have those conversations a little bit earlier, take away the fear, take away and put all the cards on the table, right? So,
I
um,
certainly hope so because it took me speaking to other women to understand that it was a viable option for me, that I could still pursue a career that I love to be in and I can raise my kids to have that exposure as well. And I'm not a bad parent.
mm,
I thought I could only do one thing. I can't multitask, I can't juggle, but that's not the case. Women are amazing. We can do absolutely anything we put our mind to.
I couldn't agree more. And the multitasking thing, there's dads that actually are, stay at
Yeah.
home parents,
Mhm.
and we're learning more and more about that role as well, how the women are going out and they're maintaining the breadwinning role, and the dads are staying home with the girls. So there's some really great things that are happening right now. And I think actually during COVID, that's when we really saw a level of the playing field, because we actually realized how much of that role that women take on, of that non-paid work. So what was
Mhm.
that like for you during COVID?
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
I
I only
we're
had
just
one
we're
kid
just
during
coming out
COVID.
of it. Like, I still
Yeah.
feel that we're really just coming out of it. And,
Mhm.
everybody can say that we're fast forward through there, but there's still lots of residue from
Yeah.
the impact that it had in our lives. So what was that like for you, Sherry?
It was it was wild. We were working in Vancouver during when COVID first became a thing. We didn't realize it was really anything. So my friends all back in Toronto, which is where I'm from, they would message me and say, "You can't get toilet paper here. The grocery stores are crazy. We're wearing masks everywhere." And I was like, "Oh, everything's normal here." In Vancouver, I didn't have an issue. So it kind of showed up a little bit later. And we were filming with CTV in Vancouver, and I had a 1 year old at the time. And everything was fine until all of a sudden it wasn't. When COVID hit, they shut down our filming. They finally were shutting down everything. They're like, "Do you want to fly home and be at home, or do you want to stay in Vancouver? This will probably be like a 2 week thing." No one thought that COVID was gonna last. And so my husband and I, we decided to fly home. Again, we had a 1 year old. We'll stay and be comfortable. Whatever. It's 2 weeks. We can. I have a cat. Let's go and be in our own comfort area. And then it turned into months of being at home. And I think it was nice. And this isn't always the case. So I'm not trying to be sexist at all when I say this, but I think it was really important to have my husband see that role that I've taken on too, because he had to be home for a while. So this is my everyday. And then I go to work. So I start my day at 4 a.m. on a daily basis, which is disgusting. Who wants to get up at 4 a.m.? But I mean, you get used to it. Um, so it was really nice to have him see what I had to do and he had to be part of it. And then when most things continued to stay shut down, our television show was deemed what's the word? An essential. So
Right.
sorry because it's entertainment. So we could go back to filming and you could work on a construction site. There were certain rules I can't 100% remember at this point. Um, but we were able to get back to filming. And in Vancouver, you had to stay in a bubble, and then you could not have a mask on beside each other. And it was different because we do have networks with the states, and so they don't always want to talk about the fact that we were going through a pandemic. So they didn't want us all in masks. So you have to be so far away from each other and meet the criteria for back in Canada. And it was really interesting. I never want to go through another pandemic again. Like I was going pretty stir crazy being at home. And then I was pregnant at the tail end of COVID and had my daughter Oakland at the very end. So that was even interesting going into a hospital during a pandemic. Like that's crazy.
So you just go forward. Nothing stops you, Sherry.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's construction. Construction's almost never ending. If you own a house, chances are you've used a skilled tradesperson in the last 2 months.
Mm.
Or if you're looking with COVID, pardon me, I'm all over the place. Well,
That's
with
okay.
COVID, construction was booming. There was so much work. They were letting their neighbors they didn't know, who didn't know construction, work on their home. You were on lists and lists and waiting lists to get a reputable contractor. You didn't care who you were hiring because you just were looking at the same four walls every single day and wanted something changed. So we went from an open concept home, which was really trending, really lovely, to everyone wanting segregated spaces so you can have an office. I'm having a work from home day today, which I generally don't have. And neither of my kids are home, which is very helpful. But when I was trying to work from home during COVID and I was doing things online, you're trying to film a video with a screaming child and toys everywhere. And I had my 1-year-old smash a cupcake into my keyboard one day, and you're like, oh, this is great. I'm having an awesome time.
I can relate. I was doing an interview and my son phoned me 6 times and I
Oh
said,
no.
I have to put this interview on pause. There's an emergency. I went to the basement, the laundry room, and I pulled my 14-year-old son out of the dryer.
What?
True story. He wanted my attention because we've been working. And he's like, I'm going to
Yeah,
get her attention when, anyways, true story.
because he's bored. He
Yeah,
he
he's
locked
bored out
himself
of
in a
his screen.
dryer.
He's like, I'm gonna put myself in the dryer and call my mom, and she's gonna get me out of here. Anyways, true story.
Wow. Could you imagine if he didn't have a phone on him?
Right.
Holy.
Well, I think he could have broke out. I think he just wanted me to rescue
Oh,
him.
okay. Well, that's
Anyways,
good.
I digress. So cupcakes on keyboards, kids
Yep.
in dryers, not working, but like we really balance a lot.
Hmm.
We pivot, we make changes. And I really want to talk about some of the barriers that you see. And I want to sort of pivot now back to the barriers that you see for women, because you are leading the charge. You're trailblazing in this industry as a visible female making great strides. So, what are some of the barriers that you see for women in your industry? And mark me if I'm right or wrong, but 23%, is it 23% are women in the construction industry, or is it even lower?
Less.
Less.
It's less than that. Yeah. It's a lot less than that. There's not a lot of women in construction, although we are seeing huge changes, which is amazing. I think maybe a 23% might be, including people who are working in office spaces and related into the construction industry. However, on site and working with their hands in a skilled trade is about 4%,
Wow.
which is crazy. Like I said, though, we are seeing a change. I've seen so many different female welders, women in plumbing, electrical, painting. There are so many skilled trades under the skilled trade umbrella that I didn't really understand was a skilled
Mm.
trade. Like baking. Baking is a skilled trade. I can't do it. I'm a terrible baker. Cooking is a skilled trade. Hairstyling, makeup, all of those are considered a skilled trade. And it takes a special person to be able to do that. I'm not great at that stuff. And everyone who is like, that you're amazing. You're doing a wonderful job. Um, but I have seen quite a few barriers for someone who has a famous dad who's in the industry. A lot of people were like, "Oh, you must have had it easy. You've never had to listen to anyone." And I think a lot of the issues for me have been mostly men. And I've worked with some of the most amazing, supportive men ever. And I don't want to ever seem like I'm putting them down. But a couple weeks ago on site, I was moving furniture from a truck and I had someone and he was genuinely concerned and very sweet. So I'm not upset at him over this. But he said, "Oh, be careful. You don't want to break one of your fingernails." And I was like, pardon me. I was pretty taken aback by that because I was like, you wouldn't have said that to a guy on site. but he meant well. So I'm not going to cause a problem or a scene because you know what? It's not worth it. Um, I had a photo shoot at a on a site in a house we were building, and they were a partner of ours. And yes, it's a photo shoot. I understand that it's different than construction, but that is the reality of my job sometimes. So I was doing a photo shoot, and as I'm leaving, I was with my marketing manager, and someone off the construction crew yelled, "The mall's that way, ladies." So you get a lot of this disparaging comments and just silly things that maybe some men think they're being funny or whatever. Um, but it's not funny. I put a post out on Twitter, and I just asked, like, hey, what do you think is the reason that so many women aren't drawn to working in construction? And a lot of the comments were fabulous, but some were like, women and math don't mix. You don't want to break a fingernail because women are stupid. Like just these silly comments that, you know, don't belong anywhere. However, I work with amazing men, and I think that is a very, very important game changing thing getting into a male dominated industry of any kind. You want to have that support behind you. It's it's a different world, to say the least.
So that is a great segue to what I'm really, really passionate about. I think I shared that behind the scenes, that we started Support Her, where
Hmm.
we amplify the voice and we actually celebrate, recognize, and we want more men that are champions for women as
Hmm.
support hers. And forget about the ones that aren't doing a good job doing that, right? I mean, there's three buckets. There's the ones that get it and they know what to do. There's the ones that get it and don't know what to do,
And
but want to do something. And then there's the ones that really don't care, and it'd be like, you know, pushing water upstream.
yeah,
So
there's just no point in wasting your
no
energy or
point
time on
wasting our
that.
time. Let's focus on the ones and twos. And so, your dad,
Yeah.
for an example, is definitely a one. So, as a Support Her, I mean, his voice is really important. So I'm going to ask, and your husband as well, like,
Yes.
tell us about your other Support Hers, or, share some stories about your dad or your husband. I'd love to hear, some things that you witnessed that are actually very positive, and inspiring to help other men,
I
join that same.
As a man, I think it's so important to be supportive of anyone at all, as a woman as well. But why do you want to alienate someone and make them feel uncomfortable in a workplace because they're a different gender than you? I will never understand that. It makes no difference if you're a male or female on a construction site. You can do the exact same things. Hey, maybe there's some stuff that I can't lift and you can, but we can do it together. And maybe there's some stuff that I can do and you can't. But you have to be willing to help each other. And that's the biggest thing for me is I think I had people on a construction site and I said, "Oh, can you help me with this?" I'm trying to learn something new. And you have some of those people who are so supportive and so helpful, and ones who are like, "Oh, you don't know how to even do that?" And that's really silly. But I work with Skills Canada, and they are some of the biggest champions of the youth in the trades. Um, and just being able to actually open my eyes to what they can do and the difference they can make having that support. Like you are acknowledged for doing great in your trade, regardless of who you are. Um, I've worked with some amazing people in the schools that I've seen, the help I've had on site. We've worked with, I don't know if you've ever heard of WIST, Women in Skilled Trades. It's a
Yes.
program, and it's just women of all different ages, whether it's the second career they want to try to get into or they've encountered some kind of issues in life. They go into this program and they're learning with this small number of women how to do construction.
Mm.
Like that, it makes it so much easier when you're not feeling uncomfortable and judged. So it's a lot of women helping women. However, a lot of the instructors there are men, and that's okay. But you don't have anyone else that's against you or making you feel a certain type of way that you shouldn't be feeling. What else? My dad has been truly amazing, and I always I joke around and I never try to compliment him as often as I am today. But he is such a champion for women. When I left, I think I was due to have a baby in a week, and I finally left site. He wanted my help to pick 2 different women to hire in from school, so from WIST, to come in and learn on site with us and work with our construction workers. And we ended up hiring one of those women on, and my husband mentored her the whole time, and she stayed with us for quite some time. And so it's just nice to see someone who doesn't look for your gender and just be like, hey, you're good at this, you can do this, let me help you.
Mm, that's awesome. Well, I hope he gets the opportunity to listen to the podcast. Like I said before, I would love actually to have you both on a
Yeah.
podcast and have a, like have his insight. Cause I think that half of the battle is that women, we talk about the barriers and the challenges that we face, but the people that can help provide us the open doors, the opportunities, the solution are our support hers. And so they actually need to be in the room, and we
Yeah.
value, and I think everybody needs to be valued for their opinion. So I would love to have that
I
as
would
a
love that.
follow-up. I think that
Yeah,
would be
let's do
super,
it.
super impactful. So
Okay.
yes, let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, so we know there's opportunities for women in construction.
Yes.
What advice would you give
Oh.
to someone in a career transition looking for something, and they're like, hey, I've always really been interested, but I've never known where to start? What would you tell them to do?
My biggest thing is I would say to keep your options open, because you never know what you could be amazing at or what you like if you don't try it. Put yourself in a small course, or if you know someone in the industry, let them walk you around a couple of things, a couple of tools. When I started, I didn't know how to read a measuring tape. I had to sit and I would count every tick. And my younger brother actually helped me learn to read it on a construction site in New Orleans, hiding from other construction workers because I was so embarrassed. So you're not going to know everything right away. And it is okay to ask for help. It's actually, I encourage you to ask for help, because there is something to learn every single day. Don't feel bad if you need a hand. I would look into a lot of these schoolings. Like I said, I'd look at people who are in the industry and some of the advice they have. Keep your options open, because the amount of careers involved in a skilled trade is so much bigger than even I knew. There's so many opportunities out there, and just give it a go. Have fun.
Well, even if we, you talked about the increase in construction during the pandemic, like you couldn't even buy wood.
Oh
Like
my God, the
the building
prices too.
supplies, we're like,
Yeah.
stuck on some boat, and, we couldn't get the containers. So, and then another thing with technology and AI being so predominant, you can't, you still need, that will never ever go away. You still need trades. Trades,
Yeah.
you will never be able to replace the trades.
So if you're looking for a job that, first of all, is going to be a lucrative career for you,
Hmm.
you are always going to be in demand, because everyone needs a trade worker at some point in their life. To have a job that feels so satisfying at the end of the day, you can look at them and be like, I made that. I built that. I built the damn castle. It's pretty awesome. And look no further. Get in the trades. You're gonna love it.
And I built my own Barbie house.
Ooh.
Right? No, but you can say I build
Oh,
my
yeah.
own
Well,
Barbie
I
house.
mean, I did not build that one, but I did build a castle, which was amazing. Yeah. Really,
For your
really cool.
girls, I'm guessing, correct?
Uh-uh.
No?
It was a park. So there's a High Park is in Toronto, and it's a well-known playground, and it was burnt down due to arson, unfortunately. And we got the opportunity to rebuild it and make it better. And it was such a dream come true. Who doesn't want to build a castle? And I met my
Mm,
husband doing that build. It was just very, very cool. So I've gotten to do some really great things.
very cool. Well,
Mhm.
um, I want to move into the celebration piece, and that sounds like a huge celebration. And I always ask this because we need to put women into the spotlight. We need to tell their stories, and we need to, see the ripple effect or the impact of those stories being shared. So, Sherry, from your perspective, why is it so important that we celebrate the achievements of women?
I think over the years, women have always been pushed into roles and pushed around in general. And it's so important to look at another woman and be like, you are worthy. You can do this. We can all do this. And then you have another person to look up to, or someone to work with. And if we don't celebrate all of our wins, how is that going to motivate you through life? Because a lot of the time, all we focus on are the losses we have and the things we do wrong. So it takes someone to celebrate the amazing things that women can do and will continue to achieve.
Beautiful. And my follow-up question to that is, and I know that we talked about it before, but the spotlight was never comfortable for you. So sometimes, that celebration piece involves stepping into the spotlight.
Mhm.
So, you know, how did that become easier for you to step into the spotlight? What changed?
I've always had a difficult time with it. I never used to like to be the center of attention. I've had a lot of questions throughout my career and like, you're an inspiration, you're this and that. And I was like, I'm not comfortable even being told that because to me, I want to encourage women, but I want to work with you. I don't want to just be looked up to. I want to help you. We're in this together. We're fighting the same uphill battle. Um, it took a long time for me to do the switch over, a long time. I still get nervous sometimes today. And I know my whole production crew and construction crew, but I don't like everyone looking at me while you're doing something or when I'm speaking at different shows and stuff. I am terrified, let me tell you. Even if you don't realize it, I am scared to death. And that's okay because you're doing something that pushes you out of your comfort zone.
Hmm. I can remember when I was a flight attendant, every time I did the
Oh, that's
demo,
a
I
cool
said
job.
yeah, it was a great job. That's where I learned how to speak actually on a microphone in front of a captive audience. They couldn't
Oh.
go anywhere.
That's true, that's
They
true,
couldn't
and they
leave.
can't really they're not
So
gonna
I
do
got
anything.
that's where I really honed my skill as a speaker, to be honest with you, at 37,000 feet in the air.
That's
But what
cool.
Thank you. So what I realized, and when I talk to women, Sherry, about that spotlight piece, it is so important, regardless of how scary it is to do it. If we don't do it, then we
Who else
can't
is?
be the beacon of light, or we can't inspire, or we can't, if you can't see it, you can't be it. Let's just put it
Yes.
that way. And so, there's a switch and a transition where, you're being of service, and it's not about ego. You're being of service by sharing your wisdom, your vulnerabilities, even like
Mhm.
you've shared with us today, which is super great. So I just want to say thank you for stepping into the spotlight again today. This has been a super breezy podcast, and it's been awesome. I cannot wait to have another follow-up with you, and
Yeah.
hopefully your dad can join us next
I
time.
bet I can talk him into it.
Okay, awesome. So okay, so you're a very busy mom. I ask this all the
Yes,
time,
ma'am.
like, what are some of the non-negotiables for you
Oh,
to really keep it all together? Do you have
I
any
think
routine, or kind of,
yes.
every day this has to be done?
Yeah, I have to work out every single day. It is the only time I have to myself, whether that be because of my children, my husband, my job. I am called in every different direction 24 hours a day. Sherry, we need you over here. Sherry, come and do this. We need to film this. Mom, I need you to do that. And I just need a break. And so my quiet time and the time that I put into caring for myself is at the gym. And that's when I get up at 4 in the morning, get my workout in, and then I can start getting myself ready and my kids ready for school before I can get to work. I think healthcare is so overlooked sometimes. If you are not taking care of yourself, nobody else is going to. You have to look out for you before you can look out for somebody else. And
Mhm.
if I'm not taking care of me, who's going to do it? So that is and it also helps me get going for the day. I'm not always in the mood to go and do a demolition day. I'm not always in the mood to be yelled at about whatever it is tantrum a child is having. Um, but to do something positive and help wake you up in the morning is really important to me.
Awesome. And so did you have some role models that you sort of aspired to be when you were sort of carving your own path, or trying to figure it out, how to do it all?
Um, I think I just kind of wung it, to be honest. Like I said, at almost having a child, it I didn't understand what I was doing. I was still pretty ignorant to the entire process of how to be a parent. And I had to learn on the fly, which I also think is very important because you're never going to know everything. It's impossible. I'm not perfect at anything that I do. I don't know everything in the industry. There's always something to learn, always something you're going to do wrong and learn to do better at the next time. So, I mean, work wise, my dad was always my role model, and I was very lucky that way. But as a parent and, I guess the fitness journey that I'm really interested in and into, I just kind of developed that along the way.
Mm. And there were not a whole bunch of female role models in the construction industry, were there?
At the time, no. So
Mm.
I didn't really have a lot of women that I would have looked up to. Now I'm discovering a lot more, which I think is amazing, and some that I follow on social media, and we can talk here and there, but it wasn't a big thing at that time, unfortunately.
Awesome. So this is the Woman of Inspiration podcast, Sherry, and we've had an amazing conversation. I could talk with you all day. I
Yay.
find it very interesting, and I do, like I said, I know my way around Home Depot.
I
And
love
as a
it.
single mom, like I would tackle everything on my own first. But
Mhm.
what is your definition of a woman of inspiration?
Oh my god, that's a difficult question. Um, wow, I think just I would never have considered myself as a woman of inspiration before. I think my definition would be someone who is not afraid to be themselves and to work as hard as they can to prove to the world that it is a possible thing. And for me, a great motivator now is my children. Look at what I can do. Look what I can get done. Funny story. My eldest daughter, who is 5, told me the other day that I have a boy career. My job is for boys.
Hmm.
And I have introduced her into construction and trades her entire life. At 2 months old, she was on my job sites with me. So it's just so funny to see how easily and how it still happens to this day that the gender roles you do get pushed in certain directions, and um, she doesn't even know what she's involved in that is also considered a man's uh, job or toy or whatever else. So to me, I think a women of influence is to show you that, hey, that's not the truth. You can do and be whatever you want, girl.
That's amazing. And I love the fact that you're raising some strong girls. They're surrounded by some really great role models and you are inspiring change. So thank you, Sherry,
Thank
for
you.
being so authentic. And, I hope our listeners gleaned a lot from this interview today. And so I'm going to say thank you to our listeners. If you enjoyed this podcast, where can they find out more about your show, Sherry, and about what you're doing to empower women?
I would say my Instagram for sure, which is just Sherry Holmes. I do not have TikTok because I'm terrified to post on it, but check out my Instagram, and then it's also on our website, which is makeitright.ca. And you can figure out when our shows are coming, which I can't announce dates just yet, unfortunately, but it will be out. So make sure you follow us on social media, and you will be the first to know.
Awesome. And I can't wait for them to comment and say, hey, we saw your interview because we will be
Yeah.
posting this interview. And of course, it's going to be on the Woman of Inspiration podcast. So share it widely. Let's help expand the
Yes.
opportunities for women in construction and trades. And really, in general, all underrepresented industries, because that means opportunity. And there isn't
Yes,
anything that
ma'am.
a woman can't do. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Any last words for our listeners today, Sherry?
No, thank you guys for taking the time out to listen to both Monica and I. I think it's amazing that you're even taking the time out of your day to listen to a podcast like this. It's so important. And I really appreciate, Monica, you having me on here today. It was wonderful.
Awesome. And I look forward to continuing the conversation with you, Sherry. And I just want to say thank you again, listeners, and share it widely. And we'll see you next on the Woman of Inspiration podcast.
Bye.